So when I notice some of them sort of tipped over, and when I pull them, I notice they're sort of broken open like this. If I see that happening to a couple of them, I pull them all. Right, using the garlic as a guide, I just bring the knife forward, remove all those hairs, not cutting into the garlic, right, like that. You can get very quick and efficient at it with enough repetition. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I'm out here harvesting some garlic, and I thought I'd do a short video on harvesting garlic and also just speak very briefly about garlic in general for those that are new to garlic. I live in Nova Scotia, Canada. It's Zone 6A, and I plant hardneck garlic. I plant them in October. I plant the cloves in October, about 2 inches deep, and then I harvest them usually around this time of year. I get reasonably good sized garlic. I'm a 6'4" man. I got a reasonably large hand. This is sort of average garlic. I have some bigger, some smaller. Right, this one's about 2 3/4 inch, maybe 3 inches in diameter. Okay, so for those that are new to garlic, every year you kind of agonize over when to harvest them. I've got a really simple technique. Let me show you one that I harvested too late. The trick with harvesting garlic, look, this one's huge. That's a really big one. It's almost 4 inches. These are music garlic, for those that want to know the variety. Always the gamble is you let them grow for as long as you can so they can achieve size, because the bigger ones are just easier to deal with from a culinary point of view. Easier to peel, easier to deal with. But if you let them go too long, they start growing, right? They break open, like these ones here. Usually you can tell when a garlic has been in the ground too long, because it'll start to tip over. I got one bed where I haven't harvested them yet. Let me show you that. Here's the last bed that I haven't harvested. I'm going to harvest these today. You can see they're ready, right? The lower branches have lost their color, and the tips of the upper ones have gone brown. These are ready. But here's a couple. See this one here? It's not straight. Sometimes when you pull these, oh, that one's okay. This one here is not straight as well. Oh, that one's all right too, making a liar of me. This one's tipped over a bit too. Let's have a look. That one's all right. Okay, well, see, look, the outer skin is starting to come off. Right, you see that? Right, once the garlic is done growing, what happens is that the outer skin rots off, and each individual the thing opens up, and each individual clove starts making its own roots. Right, these are roots from the original garlic, but each individual clove starts making its own roots, and the whole process starts over again. Right, each one of these is a clone of this plant. Right, so the garlic is procreating. It's got two ways of procreating, right? It makes cloves at the bottom, and it makes bulbils at the top like this. Right, this thing will turn into a thing that's like a flower, and it has a whole bunch of tiny little garlic things that you can plant if you want and grow tiny garlic with. So the trick is, once you see them starting to tip over, once you see some of them starting to slant over, and once the ones that tip over, you pull them and you check to see if that skin is rotting away. If you see any of that happening with any of them, you pull them all. So I mean, some people will use a time of year when they do that, but from year to year you have hotter summers than others. So to me, instead of waiting for a particular date of the year, because at least where I live, the climate is so variable. It's been very hot and very wet and very rainy where I live, and so the garlic are ahead of schedule. Normally I pull my garlic in early August, but I think they're done, because in the other beds where I pulled them all the other day, where they are growing better, each of those beds had a few, like here's one over here, let me show you. Each of those beds had a few garlic. This one here, see how the skin has broken open? Right, now this is still edible and it's still usable. I wouldn't save these for seed garlic, right? But these garlic are starting to invest some of their energy into becoming new garlic, right? This is not a good garlic for long-term storage. This is for immediate consumption, and certainly probably is not a good one to save as seed garlic. I grow 250 garlic every year. I save about 50 heads. Each head has about 4 or 5 cloves, right? So I replant those a couple months later. So when I notice some of them sort of tipped over, and when I pull them, I notice they're sort of broken open like this. If I see that happening to a couple of them, I pull them all, which is what I started doing this yesterday. The bed I was just showing you, I'll do that today. Very easy to do. I'll show you that process. Once I've pulled them, I just leave them out like this for a day in the sun. Pick a nice sunny week. And then the next process is to get them dried out. So I'll show you that in a minute. But let's pull the garlic in that bed over there first. Alright, so that wasn't hard. And all I do now is just leave them like that to dry out for a day, okay? Let me show you what I do next after that. Alright, so here's garlic that I harvested yesterday, right? Try to get some of the dirt out of those roots. To get these to dry off, okay, all I do is I grab the stem like this and I cut it off like that, okay? Some people braid them and hang them up and stuff like that, and I think in a drier climate that's a good idea. Number one, hardneck garlic don't braid very well, but number two, where I live, it's so humid all the time. I mean, we often, especially in the summer, it's like, 90-something% humidity all the time. So when you braid them, there's no airflow, and they just get all mildewy and gross. So it doesn't work for me. Also, if you leave these root hairs on, they gather moisture and they rot off. They get all moldy or mildewy or something, right? So what I do is I cut those off to help it dry out. Okay, and the process is very simple, right? You just take a knife. Be very careful. I always have my thumb past profile. But you just go around using the garlic's bottom as a guide, right? And cut them like this. This is something I get my kids to do, right? I just have them where it's a great exercise for kids to develop their knife skills. This will make them more handy in the kitchen. This will make them more handy around the house. Knife skills take years and years and years to develop, and a lot of muscle memory and a lot of cuts. And what I get them to do is I get them to put a glove on this hand, because this is the hand that's going to get cut, right? Right, and you just have their bare hand here so they can have a feel, right? And I mean, this is a relatively safe operation, right? Because you're using the profile of the garlic. You put the knife against the garlic. You put your thumb somewhere where you're not going to cut your thumb, right? You use the profile of the garlic and you just pull towards the other side, cutting out with an upward angle, so you're not cutting down into the garlic like that, right? All right, now we got a nice, clean, right? Sort of, you remove any stuff on there that's sort of papery, just by going like that. Gentle, always gentle, right? Now this is ready for drying. This is not ready for long-term storage. To dry these, all I do is I put them somewhere out of the sun on a piece of cardboard. Okay, so a surface that's absorbent. And I usually have some sort of fan going. If you've got natural airflow, that's ideal. But if you don't, you just have a fan going, moving the air around. And you leave them like that, all laid out in a pattern, right? So each one has space for airflow. You don't want them all clumped together. They have to be all spaced out so air can get each one of these somewhere out of the sun with some sort of airflow. Either a fan or just natural airflow if you have that. Like in a shed with good ventilation. Or a shed floor maybe, if it's got good ventilation. Leave them like that for a couple weeks. And then after that couple weeks are over, I cut the last little bit of stem off. And that's how I know they're ready, right? This means still drying. Once I cut it off to like that, I know it's ready, right? And I just put them like that into a brown paper bag. And you can either put them somewhere, you want them somewhere cool that's about 10 degrees Celsius. Or if you have a spare fridge, store them in a fridge. So all I do is put them in small cardboard boxes. I have a second fridge in my garage. So it's my old fridge that's sort of falling apart but still functional. I put them in cardboard boxes closed up or brown paper bags. Stick them in the fridge downstairs. And they keep, right? They keep for months and months and months and months and months. I'll be using these right up until April or May of next year, right? Or if I use them all up first. Usually I found if I grow about 250 garlic for my family, we have enough where I can use the best ones for seed, and I can eat the rest of them. This isn't eating garlic. For seed, after the garlic are all dried out, I examine them, and the ones that are the biggest and best are the ones I use for seed. Let me just show you that cutting process one more time. Right, using the garlic as a guide, I just bring the knife forward, remove all those hairs, not cutting into the garlic, right, like that. You can get very quick and efficient at it with enough repetition. And if you've got teenagers, or, you know, I can't remember how old my kids when I started them doing this, probably 10 or 11, I'd say. It's sort of, you know, in the old days, you just, you know, have your 4-year-old doing this sort of thing, I guess. But anyway, 10 or 11 is when I started having, these are really sharp knives, right? Right, but that garlic's ready for storage. If you're going to save them for seed, always save the biggest and the best for seed. Garlic are clones. So you want to, and also the bigger the parent garlic, the bigger the child. Those are just two rules of thumb that hold up over time, right? Often I'll have one bed that does the best because it's either getting the best sun or it had the best soil or it had the best whatever. So often all those best ones are the ones that I tend to save. It takes a bit of discipline because your inclination is to use those ones in your cooking, but the biggest and best tend to be the best. So I think that's everything I can tell. Right, you space these out on cardboard, put them somewhere where there's ventilation, no sun, out of the sun, because sun breaks things down. Leave them for a week or two until they're nice, until the skin, right now the skin is you can tell it's got a moisture content. You want to wait until the skin is nice and papery. Like the way garlic look in a grocery store. That's kind of what you're waiting for. It takes a couple weeks, right, depending on how dry it is where you are. It's very humid where I live, so it takes a couple weeks. If you're somewhere like a desert or whatever, that might happen a lot faster. Then you just get them somewhere cool for long-term storage. Right, if you're going to use them up right away, just stick them in a bowl in your kitchen. I mean, it depends on how many garlic. I've got a lot of garlic, so I have to save these for long-term storage. If you just planted a few of them, just stick them in a bowl in your kitchen and use them up, right? Stick them in your refrigerator upstairs and use them up. But they will not, if you just stick them in a bowl on the counter upstairs and you got like, let's say 20 or 30 garlic, they're going to last like that for months, right? So I wouldn't worry about that. So that's everything I got to say about garlic. I can't think of if you have the space, it's a great thing to grow. They're not getting any cheaper in the grocery store, especially if you like organic garlic. You know, I mean, there's cheaper kinds, but if you're, you know, the kind of person that only wants organic, they're very expensive. And the best way to do it is to grow your own. They're very easy to grow, very easy to grow. All they need is all the sun they can get, the best soil you've got, and just the right amount of water, which is easy to achieve if you just mulch the bed when you plant them. In the fall, I stick these down, I push them in the ground until it reaches my second knuckle, and I cover the whole thing with leaves because there's all kinds of leaves around in the fall, and I don't do anything until some point in May when they start getting those scapes. I snap off all the scapes and make a paste out of them. You want to remove the scapes because it helps the garlic get bigger, right? Instead of the plant investing energy into the scape, right, those long stemmy things, it puts the energy into the root, into the bulb. You can use those scapes for cooking, but you can also just turn them into like a paste or a pesto and store them and use them later. And then around now, I harvest them. It's an unbelievably low maintenance plant with the help of a mulch. So that's everything I got to say about garlic. I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Check out my weekly column at maritimegardening.substack.com. If you want to help support the channel, become a subscriber. Become a subscriber to this YouTube channel. Become a subscriber to the Substack page. Really appreciate all of that. Until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching. Hey folks, if you live in the USA and want to help support the channel, check out the Hudson Valley Seed Company and use my coupon code MARITIME10 to get a 10% discount on whatever you buy. In addition, all seed orders over $35 will get free shipping. They have a great selection of seeds, so maybe give that a try this year, and that'll help support everything I'm doing here. Thanks a lot.